Welcome back to Stationeers. Today we're going to be taking our previous circuit and we're just going to be extending a little bit just to stop this behavior. I've switched it back to using the motion sensor. It's not really a motion sensor, it's actually a player sensor because if I move in here and stop moving, it stays on. So yeah. Anyway, we're going to change this behavior. Now you can just use the daylight sensor, and that's what I left it as at the end of the last episode, but it might be worthwhile to just increase this or just change this a little bit. Now, if we have a look in here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of things here on the left. We've already covered this last episode, and we're just going to extend this a little bit into basically looping around again and again and checking. So what we actually really want to do here is whenever this activates, we want to see whether it's activated or not. So if we just scroll up here, we can see and use a BEQ. Where are you? BEQ. There we go. So branch to line C if A is equivalent to B. Double equals means equivalent. Okay. So if we assess here, is R0 basically 1? That's all we want to do. So BEQ. R0, 1, i.e. is the motion sensor activated? And if so, let's go to a line called loop. Okay, I'm just going to go down here and create a loop. Now, I'm not sure if we can actually do this in here. You'll see in a second it'll turn purple. I'm not whether you actually have to specify a hard-coded line number like 11. So 11 should work. And so I'm just going to change it to 11 right now, and we'll come back to it and put it back into loop if it isn't working. So if it is activated, it jumps to line 11. So all that we're then going to do is we're going to cut that and paste it into there. And then we're going to tell it to sleep. And I think we can specify a number here. So down here somewhere there is sleep, I think. SEQ, sleep. Pauses execution on the IC for A seconds. So sleep, let's say 10. Okay. And then we can go down to, go back to sense. So jump. So in fact, I want to yield at that point. Not that it particularly needs it, because we sleep but for 10 seconds when it happens, but just in case. And then jump back to sense. Okay. So up here, if it isn't 1, we need to take care of that as well. So that's when we yield and then jump back to sense. So the program should run in these two ways. Now, if I just send this back to, it's going to be 9, not 11 now, because I moved it up. In fact, let's just try it without the 9. Let's just try it with loop. Okay, so hopefully that should work. There isn't anything else being assessed, and let's give this a try. So let's export this, and if I move away for a second, it should stay on for 10 seconds, which is good, hopefully. Are you going to shut down? 10 seconds is perhaps a little bit too long to test. Maybe you're not shutting down. Let's see. Where is the error in my program? Maybe I do actually need hard-coded values. Let's just give this a try. Jump to 9, and that should be fine. And then I want to jump back to sense here. Yeah, so that should work. Why aren't you working? Let's just change this to something in smaller, like 2 seconds. So export. And if I move away, and do you actually work now? You are stuck somehow. Let me just quickly check this and come back to you in a second. Simple error. I forgot to actually set the light back again. So whatever we do, in this top loop, we need to set the setting to R0. So if it's 0, then it needs to be set there.
Oxygen low.
Yeah, I need to flush the helmet. 1 second. Let's just flush that out. There we go.
Temperature critical.
Okay. As I was saying,
Critical.
yeah. Are you gonna stop? Yep.
Temperature.
Stop. I know. Good. All right. So sense, activate. If it's 1, it jumps to here and sets the setting. And if it is, in fact, we could just actually do that. Yeah, we could actually just cut that out. Okay, and put it there, and we don't need it in here at all. So we set it there, and then we jump out to the loop, which just sleep. It's just a sleep loop, does nothing more than that, and then jumps back to the top, assesses it again, and then changes it. So if we just then confirm and export, if I step away in 2 seconds, it should go off. Should come back on. Okay, is that 2 seconds, or am I just never actually being assessed there? Let's increase this to 5. because I want to see if that loop jump to line actually works or not. It is working, but that isn't actually seconds. I just remembered. Because this thing runs once every half second, not every second, then sleep 5, is that the number of ticks or is that the number of seconds? Let's have a look. Sleep. Sleep. For a seconds. That seems small. Let's just send it to 10 and export. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay, that seems to be fine. As long as these then actually turn off. Yep, they've turned off. So that's perfectly fine and is working as expected. So now all you need to do with this bottom section is just set this accordingly to whatever number of seconds. So if you detect motion, you may want to change it to, let's say, so 60 seconds a minute. So we can just do a couple of minutes, 120, something like that. Okay. And then what I probably want to do is just move that sensor. So if we just grab a tool here, I'm just going to grab this one and we're going to put a sensor in here, I think. Motion sensor. And you're not going to want to attach to the wall except doing it that way. Will you let me rotate you? Why can't I just... why won't you attach to the wall? There you go. So if I have it right here, whenever I pass by it, it should actually trigger. And we're just going to connect that up. Okay. And then let's just splice this in. There we go. And we're going to actually remove this one. So let's just grab that. You can go away. Put my backpack. And we'll just have to reset this using a screwdriver to set this to motion sensor. There we go. So if I just go through here, that should be fine, and it's working. Now, you've probably seen what the vulnerability of this is, in that this will turn on for 2 minutes, no matter which way I walk past this thing. Okay, once I set this up. Is this still set to 10 seconds? It probably still is. 120, yeah, let's just export it. So if I just go on here, yep, see this should turn on and this should stay on without me having to worry about it. Now, the problem there is that's going to happen whether I exit the building or into the building. So you could create 2 entrances and say, hey, this way only for going in, and then it will stay on for 2 minutes, etc. I'm less fond about that. So what you may want to do is maybe just have your motion sensor in here somewhere rather than in the doorway. I'm not going to worry about it too much. It is protecting itself just for 2 minutes is fine whenever I leave the building or whenever I enter the building. You may want to hook this up to a second motion sensor. So what we could do here, I think, and I'm just going to do this because it's worthwhile, is another extension. In that when I'm moving around in here, I'm probably going to be going past a certain point. Let's just say it is here because I'm feeding stuff in, aren't I? So at this point, I am going somewhere around here. So what we really want to do is we want to take our earlier sensor and we're going to extend this to allow for the fact that I could be walking around. So let's just say right here. And let's just extend our cabling so that we have this. And where's my cutters? There we go. I don't want a 3-way corner. I just want a junction. Okay. So I'm going to quickly need a relabeler. So floor motion sensor. Okay. And then out here, I'm going to say door motion sensor. Okay, so both of those are set up and they're on the network that we can see. I shouldn't need anything here now. I should be able to put this down. It's deciding not to go onto the floor, which is the wonderful thing. Let's get it onto the floor up there first. There we go. Okay, so you see there's a motion sensor. Oh, that's annoying. I don't have to step onto it, but anywhere within 1 block should do so. Anywhere in this block or... Ooh, yeah, it's actually... Yeah, it has to be this block. I may move that later. The principle is sound, just the positioning is a little bit off. Yeah, I'm not quite sure because we've got a high ceiling here. I've not got all the windows in, but there's a high ceiling and I really want that to be longer range. If there's any way of getting longer range sensors, I would very much appreciate you guys letting me know in the comments. If there isn't, then boo. Anyway, so we need to then basically extend this. So all we need to do to be able to read it is just like before. We're not using this D1 because we're using the setting of the housing itself to determine when things go on. So there you go. You see the setting is set to 1 and the reader underneath there, sorry, the writer, batch writer, is writing to all the lights. So here then we can just change this to be the floor motion sensor and this is the door motion sensor. And then all we're going to do on the inside is actually just redo this. So the light is dB. What I'm actually going to do is up here say alias, and then I just need to change this. So the door sensor is D0, and the floor sensor, floor sensor is D1. And then I don't actually ever need, well, in fact, I could actually use it here. So door sensor. That just makes it a little bit nicer. Right now, that will work exactly as before. So if I export that, should be no change once I actually do this. There we go, because the whole thing reset when I hit export. Fine. However, we probably need to change this program a little bit. Now, the change is going to be a very, very simple one. What we're not going to need to do is anything complicated. So we're not going to see to say if this is on and that one's on, then that's fine. You know, what we're really saying is if either one is on, then just start the loop. Okay, so we don't need to do any comparisons there. All we need to do is decide, or well, not even decide. We can basically say if load into the same R0, if the floor sensor is on, if its activate state's on, then also write a 1. So at some point the R0 will, if I just export this, and then let's just change this back to something small so you can see the change. So let's just say 5 seconds. Export. So lights are off. If I go over here, lights should turn on, hopefully. Whoops, if I stand in the right spot, they'll turn on. And they will turn back off again in a few seconds, hopefully. Yeah, and if I go here, if I go here, wait a second, why isn't that working? Door motion sensor? Door motion sensor, oh, I know why. Yeah, I do need to do some comparison. It's being overwritten. It depends on the order in which you read them. So what's happening here is if this is set to 1, then the next line it's saying that that is set to 0 and then overriding them. So yes, we do actually need something a bit more complicated. So let's use R1. Okay, so they're both in separate things. And yet again, we can't see, we can't just write them straight to the light because again, they'll overwrite each other if they're in different states. So we need a handy little function that basically finds out the maximum of the two and writes that. So if either one is set to 1, then it will do that. So is there a maximum? I need to find out what it's actually called. 1 second. Completely, you know, completely weirdly, it's called max. Okay, so we can basically say what's the maximum and put it in R0 of a, and it has to be, we have to read in R's. We can't just read in directly from the device, otherwise this will be shorter. So we're basically saying what's the maximum of these two things and then write it. So what's the maximum of R0 and R1 and write it into R0. And then we're setting R0 to the light. So will you work now? So if I just export this, nothing's happening. If we go to this, will you turn on the lights? You will. 5 seconds later, the lights should go off, and they should go off around about now. There we go. And if you go over here, they'll turn back on again. So yeah, this is working. And it becomes a little bit more complicated if you have more than 2 sensors, because then you have to then compare them in sequence. So if we had another thing here, I'm just going to put a hash and let's say, you know, load R2 and then other sensor activate. And then what we'd have to do is compare them in sort of a descending sequence. So we'll probably have to do maximum R1, R1, R2. And then that would jump into R1. And then we would have to then do the same line here. So maximum of R1 then and R0 is R0. And then the whole thing would work again. So you get the idea. If you wanted to do it that way, you could. In my case, I don't need to worry about it because I've only got 2 sensors right now. So I can just delete that line, and everything should work. Yep, hopefully I've not erased anything important. Yep, I like it. And then all we need to do is just set this back to something reasonable, and I'm just going to set it to 120 because I should be moving around more than that when I'm actually in here. There we go. And let's shut down the computer. Everything's done. We can put our cladding back, and I'll leave the cladding out actually for now because I'm probably going to be moving this sensor around a little bit. Yeah, I'm just going to put it. You know what? I think I'm going to set up another sensor. Anyway, I'll do that off camera. So I've moved the motion sensor a little bit, and if you're wondering why my tools have all changed colour, I was stood here for no apparent reason. My my suit and my helmet blew off. Yeah. And I went through the roof, through the windows, and my corpse is over there. I actually dragged it over there just so it's nice and out of the way. So yeah, that's that. Just completely randomly, no warning, no issue. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention in the game now: if you press escape on the escape menu, you will find sort of scenarios, and we can take a look at those, I guess. Here you'll see them, open incidents. On the right hand side you can see a whole bunch of things happening like power surges, grounder attacks. Yeah, these are things that I assume they're going to start adding to the game to be randomized events. Right now they're not randomized, they won't trigger unless you actually click on them. But there's also beneficial effects like supply crates being dropped. So beacon tracker should show you the way. Interesting. What else have we got in here? So meteor shower. Yes, that's almost to the point of space engineers. And canisters nearby. Device faults, fungus infection in plants. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you have backups for those. Extreme weather patterns, pipe pressure overload, and burning random cables out. So let's just close that for a second. And we can come back. So, where was I before I got killed? I wish I had that on camera. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording, and I was just so surprised. Anyway, I did add 4 different motion sensors. So door, furnace input, and furnace. So let's just get those in. So furnace input. I just need to just add those to there. So furnace sensor is here. Furnace sensor. Alias furnace input sensor is D2, and then alias arc furnace sensor is D3. Okay, and we just need to do what I said before, which is to assess them. It doesn't really matter which order you assess them in, but if I assess them in fact, you can shortcut this because I've got 4. So if I just do max D2, D2, D3. Oops. In fact, no, I need to read them in first, don't I? Because I can't use max on the devices. Yeah, so let's just load that into the devices. So that needs to be a bit of repetition, but not too much. Furnace sensor activate. Load R2. Furnace input. Be nice if there was tab completion. I realize that is it's a bit of a unrealistic request to make of the poor developers, but if I could tab complete anything I'd already set, that would be cool. And yes, the max here, you can actually shortcut things. So R2, instead of having to compare them in a descending chain, because we've got 4 instead of 3, we can just do R2, R3, 3. And now we just need to compare well, in fact, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't really matter here. We have to compare them all. So max R2 with, well, in fact, no, we just need to add to one more line. So max R0 with R0 and R2. So we're going to take this line's output and this line's output, and then we'll compare them to get the final output, and then that should all work. Edit, export. And now, if I activate this one, a light should come on. Is this set to high value? Still set to too high value. Let's set that to 4 seconds. Export. So, trigger you on, 4 seconds. Go off. And if we come over here, if I'm messing around with this, the light should come on. Cool. And they go off again. Yep. Over here. Cool. And then one thing to note about when you put these things on the edge of a block, and they're on the edge of a block, a line right here, so that the I don't have to walk over it when I get to this. So when I go here, it's basically on the inside of whatever the block is. So the connection is on this side, so this is where that gets triggered from, and that will work fine. And in fact, as long as I stay in this area, it will keep the lights on. So, you know, that's while I'm working is not a problem at all. I suppose you could put one right by the computer as well if you wanted to. I'm not going to worry about it just yet. And instead, all I need to do is just change that back to 120. And we're done. Confirm, export. And just so you got this on the screen, I'll copy and paste this into a GitHub gist so you can copy and paste it yourself. Add as many sensors as you like, alias them up just so you got a reference for them, and then add an alias for your device base as the light. Then read them all into registers, compare two of the registers, compare the other two registers, and then compare both of those, and then you are sorted. You can just take that final value, set it to the light, and then start your loop. Jump, sleep for 120 seconds. When that comes back out, resets, and around you go. Simple, effective, and it should work perfectly well. And once I trigger this, well, light should come on. So from this point, all I really need to do is use the same type of light anywhere in this building, as long as it's on the same network, and they'll all get lit up. So what I may well do is put them on the other side in the same sort of locations. I'm not going to do it now, but I'll probably do it between the episodes at some point, and we should be okay to go from there. One other quick thing on this, if you ever wanted to get both or more than one sensor together and use the combined sort of state, i.e. only when they're all on, you know, every switch that you have is on, like this, if someone was here and then another one person was stood over here. The only thing you need to do to change this, just in case you ever wanted to do something like that, and it wouldn't be for lights, it'd be for anything else, is just to change a couple of things, like basically look at the AND function. So register equals 1 if A and B not 0, otherwise 0. So basically, if you set this instead of max to be and, it basically only when both switches were on would it then basically set R2 to 1 here. We don't need that in this circuit, but we will be using something like that later, because we're going to be coming into, and people are suggesting more things like, hey, programmed fully automate furnace. Yes, I'm going to work on those kind of things too, but we have to get you into it a little bit easier than that kind of thing. Anyway, aside from me exploding and setting a sort of an improvement for this circuit, I just wanted to do this as a second circuit tutorial, and then we're probably going to get into more useful stuff later. So, well, fairly soon, in fact, actually. And what are we going to do next, I wonder? I would like to deal with hydroponics via program, but right now the hydroponic stuff up here is pretty efficient with just 3 ICs. And if we just go and grab my is this, no, what are you going to object to? You don't go have a cartridge because my other one blew up. Let me just go let me just go and swap this for the one that didn't blow up, hopefully. Are you in this space pack, possibly? Yeah, let's just go and get my original green version back and put the space pack back. Grab this one. There we go. We got a configuration cartridge. Yeah. Let's just go and change that cartridge out. And I just want to double check the power usage. I think someone did say in a comment, but I forgot what it was. So let's just look at the network analyzer for here. So yeah, let's turn you on. Yeah, so network analyzer, I want to see what the power usage is of these things. So devices. So logic reader is 10 watts. Let's get rid of that backpack. Logic compare is 25 watts. So it's 45 watts for each of these 3 for this. Yep, so 10, 20, 45, and that controls all of this. And this, presume, is taking power as well, the back pressure regulator. Back pressure regulator? That's 100 watts. So 145 watts, and the This will use power, but only when it's on. So I'm not really going to count that. I'm really thinking about permanent power draw more than anything else. And are potatoes already? Yeah, more potatoes. I'm going to get sick of baked potatoes. Maybe I need to grow something else. Someone said in the comments what I'm suggesting. So someone said other than baked potatoes, there was something else you'd eat faster. I think it was tomatoes. So we may have to grow those. And then we'll just have a look at this. How much are you actually using in here? So let's just look at this junction. So batch writer is 10 watts. And we just want the IC housing, so that's 50. So it's 60 watts for the entire automatic lights. However, when the lights are on, they're 50 watts each, but that's just the nature of the beast. There's nothing we can do about that. Computer, when that's on, it's 200 watts, so we can turn you off. Nice and efficient now. And activate when that's on. In fact, it's on all the time because we're not controlling that yet. Yeah, so that's another slight power hog that we can probably get rid of. And we can do that via a separate switch, actually. Everything on here... Well, let's just do that now. Everything on here is... I've got... That's our power to this, but I've got a feeling that everything else is powered from that. It is. So what I need to do, I think, is just separate this power network out a little bit. And that sensors on it, which is a little bit unfortunate. Nope, can't do that for now. I'm going to leave it as is. But yeah, you could separate out this entirely, or indeed have that hooked to this switch. So when this goes off, that would also go off, and vice versa. You could do that with a couple of chips, or you could do it with the program. Since this program is already managing everything in here, you can extend the program, because we have 2 inputs left. So if I... Well, in fact, I have an input and an output. So I could read those. Should we do that? I'm not sure if we can do it the same loop. No, we probably can't. Because every time the lights are on, it's in a separate loop. Yeah, we can't do that. But in the normal case, you could. You could just add that to this the loop, add some extra line to say, when input bin, shoot bin is on, set this to on. When it's off, set it to off. And that's really, really easy as a program. And it just doesn't consume any more power because it's on the same circuit. So I'll leave that there for now. It's a little bit shorter than a normal episode. And we'll come back next episode, hopefully with less personal explosions. And we'll probably be doing some more circuits to get everything else. And that can be covered now. To get everything else done, probably outside of this room now. I think we're pretty much done in here. I need to put a door on, or a couple of doors on, or even an airlock, really. And get the roof on. Not quite so sure whether we need an airlock because I can't breathe the atmosphere anyway. The atmosphere needs to be nitrous oxide for me to be able to breathe it. So yeah, maybe we should think about having an atmosphere that I can breathe, at least for explosions. Until next time, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Feel free to put comments down below on any suggestions or improvements that you suggest that I might make for future episodes. Otherwise, as always, give it a thumbs up and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.